Bastion Station. It was a former mining depot, converted military station. It was a makeshift patchwork at its peak. Now it had shields 20 years out of date, point defense systems that hadn't been fired in over a year, and only the occasional bit of space debris, and main armaments that belonged in a museum. These days, it was considered a backwater to send undesirables who weren't worth drumming out of the military yet. What Captain Ulysses had done to deserve the command of Bastion was beyond him. Ulysses fought back his resentment and disappointment in the command by viewing it as a personal challenge instead. A challenge to turn the outdated backwater into a model of military organization and precision. He had more shipmen court-martialed in his first month as captain than Bastion had seen in the last 5 years. Ulysses may not have been popular among the men, but they still respected him. For all the captain's vision, nothing could have prepared him for what came next. "Captain, our sensors are picking up a massive number of warp signatures," Ensign Foster pointed out. Ulysses blinked in confusion before answering, "Check your calibrations, do a system restart and double-check your sensors. Nothing should be out here." They were in the middle of nowhere, and the only one in warp distance were the Narrator, but humanity and them had held a non-aggression pact for several decades. Ulysses turned to another of his officers. "Ensign Hodger, raise shields and bring power to weapons. Set alert status yellow," he ordered crisply, not even bothering to look to the young deck officer, who had just been building a tower out of a deck of cards. "Right away, sir," the officer sheepishly obeyed, clicking away at his station. "Sir, the warp signals are stable," Ensign Foster confirmed, "and whoever they are hailing us." "Put them through." The captain gave the viewing screen a dour look, standing at attention, his face betraying no emotion, as he prepared for what was coming. A moment later, a brutish figure with a square face, short, thick snout with a large horn on the end, one pair of eyes on the front of its face and a second pair on either side, baring its teeth in a human approximation of a smile, or just showing its predatory ancestry. "This is Captain Michael S. Ulysses. I was not expecting a visit from the Narrator today. To what do I owe the honor?" His words were polite, but his tone was stern, direct, and cold. "Puny human, you will have no honor today, for I reclaim the honor of my bloodline," the alien warlord began. "I have waited for cycles and cycles, hearing the stories of my father, his ship burning and falling from the stars at this very station." The captain had to try hard not to roll his eyes. "Today I avenge my father. As his ship burned, so shall puny Bastion." Clad in armor, the Narrator commander raised one fist and clapped the other against his heavy breastplate. "My apologies, I didn't get your introduction or rank. Until I receive that information, I cannot formally accept your declaration of war," the captain responded nonchalantly, hardly even blinking. Meanwhile, his crew was staring at him wide-eyed, as if he had just challenged a gorilla to an arm-wrestling match to the death. The Narrator, on the other hand, blinked all 4 eyes in confusion, looking around its view screen before looking back. "You will accept my declaration of war, puny human. Only then can we have honor. If you do not accept, then I will crush you, I will board you, and I will extract the acceptance at the tip of my blade." The alien roared again, loud enough to make the audio crackle. Still, the captain appeared unfazed, his hand clasped gently behind his back. "The human government will consider that under duress and ignore the declaration of war as an act of piracy. However, I am happy to accept any terms or declarations you have, with the addition of your rank, title, and name," Ulysses lectured, like he was talking to a schoolchild. With a sneer, "I am Warlord Kundum. I am called after my father's line, and the human word for desolation. I lead the mighty armies of the Narrator. I bring justice and vengeance for our fathers who died valiantly to blot out the human menace. Warlord Kundum, I accept your declaration of war, and I pity you for your foolishness. If you hail us again, I would expect your declarations to include an unconditional surrender, Ensign, cut the feed. Ulysses cut off the ranting alien, waiting just a moment for the view screen to go dark before giving more orders. Foster, give me an ETA on those warp signals. They will hit real space in about 15 minutes, sir, Foster said, visibly shaking, tears starting to well in her eyes. Hodgner, bring alert level to red. I need all hands at stations 10 minutes ago. Hodgner didn't move, though, didn't respond, just looking over Foster's shoulder at the sea of green blips signaling a massive invasion fleet, full of blood-hungry, revenge-driven aliens, who would only stop when every one of them was space dust. Ulysses stormed over to Hodgner's station, lifting him up by his lapels, bringing them nose to nose. I gave you an order, Ensign. If you can't take commands, you will report to your bunk and return when you decide that you want to be part of this military, he seethed, before dropping the officer back in his chair. Open the line to the ship, and for heaven's sake raise the alarm, the captain repeated. The shell-shocked Hodgner finally responding, a soft beep signaling that a line was now open to the rest of the ship. Ulysses took a deep breath, closing his eyes and centering himself, opening them, letting them blaze with fire and determination. Crew of Bastion Station, we are being offered the privilege of distinguishing ourselves today. In 15 minutes we will make contact with an alien force that outnumber us at least 20 to 1. We are being offered the opportunity to become a footnote in history, and I couldn't be more grateful. We stand in Bastion Station. A short pause for dramatic effect. This station was the front line against the tide of the Nazar Vek 20 years ago. We broke their tide then, and we will do it again. This time next year, each of you will be getting a medal from the Admiral himself, and you will be able to tell your children of the Third Battle of Bastion Station. And I know this because Bastion Station has never fallen, and Bastion Station will never fall. The line ended, and the captain physically deflated. You really think we can win? Foster asked, wiping away her tears, as Hodgner, with a silly grin on his face, newly revitalized, worked feverishly to calibrate the point defenses and send the various alerts throughout the station. Would I lie to you? Ulysses lied. Send a distress out, include the war leader's recording. And one more thing. Activate the gravity well. I don't want them running unless I say so. 15 minutes felt like a little less than 1 before the Nazar Vek fleet flooded in from warp space, the weapons already primed before they hit real and firing, flooding the dark backdrop of space with the light of plasma and ray weapons. But if the Nazar Vek were a tidal wave, then Bastion was a mountain. Bastion would not be moved. Bastion would not fall, would not falter. Bastion would push back the tidal wave and add one more notch to its belt. Bastion was a fully armed and armored space station. Bastion is the site of the 2 greatest defeats in all of Nazar Vek. Bastion is crewed by the greatest shipmen that humanity have to offer. Bastion is not held together by welds or bolts, nor is it protected by its shields and heavy armor. Bastion is held together by the will of a single captain, so much stronger than the pull of a black hole, and protected by the heart of humanity that has weathered so much more and so much worse than anything the Nazar Vek. Bastion will not fall, because Bastion cannot fall. Hours pass, and Ulysses sat alone in the command center. Hodgner's body slumped lifelessly over his control desk, Foster having been dragged away on a stretcher to the medical ward, blood pouring down his side. Alarms flashed all around him, declaring low-energy reserves for their ray weapons. Shielding was completely offline. Plasma cells had completely run dry, and whoever was loading the conventional weapons seemed to have disconnected the inventory from the mainframe, as those just said NA. The station was leaking atmosphere, and the majority of Bastion was compromised. The view screen crackled to life, showing Kundum once again, fires in the background, and half his face covered in medical gauze, revealing they were just as bad off as the human defenders. Captain, you said not to contact you without offering an unconditional surrender. Ulysses only nodded, clutching an oxygen mask to his face. I do not wish to die like my father did. Today I will forsake honor if you accept our surrender. I would be happy to accept the surrender of the Nazavek peoples. The captain would have grinned if his entire body didn't ache, and the lives of his crew didn't weigh on his conscience. No. We only surrender the battle. We flee, we regroup, we fight again. The warlord tried to beg. That does not work for me. I promised my men a place in the history books, after all, the captain chided. Anger built in Khondoon's face. You are as broken as we. If we stay, if we fight to the death, then all die, all of us, the Nazavek shouted, making the audio crackle again. Check the warp signatures on your sensors, the captain responded, dryly. His own ability to check for warp signatures long disabled, but the look that Khondoon gave told Ulysses everything he needed to know. You may have noticed that I am no longer the highest-ranking member of the human navy. As such, I can no longer accept terms of surrender, declarations of war, or so forth. Ulysses went to cancel the video feed, but paused. I want you to know, before you relive your father's legacy, my father was here too, and his father before him. If you ever find your way home, you let your son know that Bastion will never fall, because Bastion can never fall. Bastion Station. It was a former mining depot, converted military station. It was a makeshift patchwork at its peak. Bastion Station, the site of 3 battles that could have broken humanity, and did break their enemies. Bastion Station was shields 20 years out of date, point defense systems that were so blaster burnt they would never fire again, and main armaments that belonged in a museum for never failing to defend humanity and its crew. Bastion Station. It will not fall because it cannot. His crew sent there as a punishment. But when the moment called, they were the greatest men and women that humanity could offer.